The next area we're going to focus on are graphing inequalities on a number line. So just a reminder, a number line, negative numbers go to the left, so the smaller numbers goes to the left, positive numbers go to the right, or the bigger the numbers get, they're going to the right. And then 0 is neither positive or negative. So if it says n is less than 1, it's wanting us to graph all of the values that are less than 1. So that's what n is representing. So any number that I plug in that makes this true is a number less than 1. So on a number line, the way that I usually do it is I just pick the number that it gives me and I put that in the middle. And then I pick a number smaller than 1 and a number bigger than 1 to put next to it. So the number smaller than 1 is 0, the number bigger than 1 is 2. So that shows me which direction is small, which direction is big. So if I plugged in 2 for this, that would not be true. But if I plugged in a 0, 0 is less than 1, which is true, so I want to graph towards 0. So I'm going to start at 1, and then I'm going to graph numbers towards 0. So because it says less than 1 and not less than or equal to 1, 1 is not actually included. So that's why I use this open dot instead of filling in the dot to include 1. Another example, it says a is greater than or equal to 0. So I'm going to do my number line. It's given me 0, so I'm going to put that in the middle. A number smaller than 0 is negative 1. A number bigger than 0 is 1. So this time I want to know which of these numbers, if I plug it in, make this true. So if I plug in a 1, 1 is greater than 0. So 1 makes this true, so I want to graph towards the 1. So I'm going to start at 0 and then graph towards the 1. Because this time it says equal to 0, I'm actually going to fill this in to include the 0 as well. So now I've graphed values that are equal to 0 and greater than 0. So any number that's here, like eventually this will hit 100. And if I plug 100 into this, that would make it true. But any number that I didn't draw the arrow towards, all of these numbers would make this statement false. So with these inequalities, those dots that I used, whenever there's no equals to sign, you're going to use an open dot. And whenever there is the equal to sign, you're going to use a closed dot, because that includes the number. So 2 more quick examples. Sometimes these throw people off because they look like they're backwards. So if we start at negative 3, remember negative 4 is smaller, so that's going to go to the left, and negative 2 is bigger because that's getting closer to 0. So here it says negative 3 is less than f, or if you read it the other way, it would be f is greater than negative 3. So it's eating the f. So that means we want to pick numbers that if I plug them in, say if I plugged in 0 here, it's eating the bigger number, so that makes this true. So I'm going to start at negative 3, and 0 made it true, so I'm going to graph towards the 0. Then one last one. I've got negative 2 to start with. So a number smaller than that is negative 3. A number greater than that would be negative 1 or 0. So this time it says negative 2 is greater than or equal to x, or x is less than or equal to negative 2. So I want to figure out which of these numbers, if I plug them in, make this true. So if I plug in a negative 3, it's eating the greater number, because negative 2 is greater than negative 3. So that means since negative 3 is true, we want to graph towards negative 3. And this time it had an equals to sign, so I'm going to do a solid dot, and then I'm going to graph towards negative 3. If I'd plugged in a 0 here, if 0 is the greater number and it's not eating that, so 0 would not be true. So why don't you guys, actually, let's look at a few more. So really quick, sometimes you have to go from graphs to writing the inequalities. So here they've given us 8. So I always use x, but you can use whatever variable you want. And then it's graphing values that are smaller than 8. So x is representing everything it's graphing. So x is going to be less than 8. And since it's an open dot, we're going to do less than, but with no equals to sign. Here I'm going to start with the x and then whatever number the dot is on, so 0. This time it's graphing values that are bigger than 0. So x should represent numbers bigger than 0. So if I plugged in 3, 3 is greater than 0. That's true. So we know that this is the correct inequality. Ooh, except it was a solid dot, so we want to put that equals to sign below it. One more like that. Here, I know they didn't label it, but that's an 11. So we've got x and 11. And this time it's going to numbers smaller than 11, so x is less than 11, and it's also equal to. So if I plugged in, say, 0, 0 is less than or equal to 11. Yep, 0 is smaller than 11, so this is true. So now that you've seen how the number line graphs work, why don't you guys go check a few out?